All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the Future Peds Res West Region Small Programs webinar for the 2025 match cycle. If you're with us for the first time, welcome. And if you've attended any of our previous webinars, thanks for joining us again.
My name is Stephanie Maeda, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at Western University College of Osteopathic Medicine of the Pacific Northwest, and I'm one of the co-directors this year for Future Peds Res, and we wanted to welcome you and thank you for being here with us tonight.
And my name is Caroline Maltese. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a fourth-year student at Penn State College of Medicine in Hershey, and I'm the other co-director along with Stephanie for the Future Peds Res group, and we are just so happy to have you here tonight. All right.
Before we start, we would like to acknowledge our faculty advisors. First is Dr. Michael Dell, who is our APPD faculty advisor. He is also the Vice Chair of Education at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, as well as Colleen Hughes, who serves as the Associate Executive Director for APPD. We would also like to acknowledge our concept faculty advisor, Dr. Rachel Thompson, who is an assistant professor of pediatrics and director of pediatric undergraduate medical education at the Boston University Chobanian and Avedisian School of Medicine. These individuals have made tonight possible, and we are very, very grateful for their support.
It is now our pleasure to introduce you all to our Assistant Directors of Webinars for the West Region. First, we have Danielle Tucker. Her pronouns are she, her, and she is a fourth-year medical student at Ross University School of Medicine. And we also have Ria Peralta. Her pronouns are also she, her, and she is a fourth-year medical student at Nova Southeastern University.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, Caroline. We would also like to introduce our FPR webinar associate director working hard behind the scenes tonight, Sheena. And now let's delve into our goals for the night.
All right, welcome to everyone joining us tonight. We're so excited to have everyone at the West Region Small Programs webinar and are grateful to all the program directors and assistants, as well as coordinators who have taken time out to be with us tonight. Our series goals for the regional webinars are providing pediatric residency applicants with foundational knowledge surrounding the virtual interview season, well-rounded insight into the benefits of programs by region, and devoted time for live Q&A. As you can see here on this slide, this will be our schedule of tonight. So we started off with welcomes, introduced our APPD and concept leadership, and then after this, we're going to transition into our program presentations, followed by a live Q&A. Before we move on, we'll have the APPD representatives of the West Region states, Dr. Manzoor, who will give us a quick overview of some of the states included in the West Region area from the APPD leadership in that region. Dr. Manzoor, would you mind starting us off?
I think we have a few more joining, and Dr. Mansour might be just joining now.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Would you be willing to introduce the Western region and specifically highlight small programs in that region for us, please?
Yes, absolutely. Would you like me to share the slides, or are you have the slides I sent before?
Yep, the slides you sent before should be loaded up.
Okay, awesome. Yes, so I'm happy to do that. So my name is, let me just share my there. So I apologize. I'm just rushing home from clinic. The time got the better of me. But so my name is Savar Mansour. I'm the Associate Program Director for the Pediatric Residency of Idaho. But I am also the Vice Chair of Meetings for the Western region of the APPD. And so was asked to kind of to represent what the Western APPD does and small regions in their area, or small programs in the area. And so we be able to click through some of those. Yes, so obviously why the Western region? I think all of us, the first thing that comes to our mind is just how absolutely beautiful it is, and pretty diverse if you think about if you look at the map, how much we have in there. But I think a lot of what draws many, many people who come to this region is just the sheer beauty and what we have to offer as far as just like outdoor activities and just being in nature. And also in that same kind of area too, is we have very diverse populations of children and families, many languages, cultures, history, different kind of access to different resources. And so I always think that the history of the West kind of represents a lot of what we see and have in our everyday practice, which never gets boring, no matter where you are in the Western region. And then, as we kind of talked about before, is just the opportunities explored a wide range of interests and activities outside of medicine. And so I think a lot of us come into medicine very passionate about what we do, but we also want a chance to do other things and explore what those could be. And so I think whether it's an outdoor activity or getting involved in different areas of the arts or plays or different things that you can do, I think there's an abundance of that on this side of the country as well. So. And I think also in the Western region, there are a lot of different training experiences that are there. So we can think about we're a little bit more spread out than on some of the other regions. And so some of our major kind of tertiary children's hospitals, just they're not as close. And so you have these large gaps. And how do you fill those in from a medical community home, systems is always a little challenging, and how we have to be creative about how do we do that? How do we reach these different populations? And so that does change our training experiences, and it changes a little bit how we approach maybe subspecialty care or critical care or getting access to care in some of these, maybe they're difficult to reach, maybe just physically regions. And again, or what has brought different populations to certain regions, and then how do we reach them? And so it changes how we practice medicine, and then therefore it changes how we train, so from our medicine as well. And so thinking about looking at kind of this focus on community health is that our communities will all have different needs in this region based on kind of their climate, their environment, the mountain region that might be, that might kind of go past you, and it makes it difficult to drive someplace, or just all the different things that might be there. And so we have a lot of focus on our community health and the communities that live within this area, and then absolutely focus on advocacy. I think there's so much amazing advocacy works that goes on in the region. And then for the board, we've actually taken this as something that we're really excited about, to kind of collaborate within the programs in this region to see what can we do in different forms of advocacy. And we just hosted a advocacy focused and themed conference back in February, where multiple program directors from the region came together and talked about this. And it was really exciting just to see the passion that people have to kind of elevate our communities here in this region. So and like we said before, very diverse patient populations. You have border health, refugee care, you have Native American care. There's lots of different areas of again, the needs of these populations and their histories of how they've come here and why of how they're here. And I think trying to be sensitive to that and again meet the needs of our patient population as we do this, and again, very wide catchment areas. When I worked in southern Idaho in a rural area, I loved that I would see babies from northern Nevada or eastern Oregon, because we happened to be the closest. And then you create partnerships in those areas too. And then the resident characteristics, so thinking about how do we make sure that we are being inclusive programs that value diversity, encourage residents to pursue their individual career goals. And I think each program does that in different ways, but I think the emphasis on we want each individual that comes to the residency to get out of the residency what they need to pursue their passions is, I think, pretty throughout the board. That's what we want. We want people to be happy in medicine. We want people to love pediatrics and what they do and how they practice and what they practice in pediatrics. is going to vary, but we want to support all the individuals to do that. So, and again, facilitate resident success into fellowships or primary care positions or academic positions, because we do want our trainees to stay in the region. This is a region that does have, a lot of critical access to healthcare. And so I think many of the programs here, we look to recruit, to train for not just, our, just to get you through, but to really look at our future colleagues. And that's what I love, what we do. And that's one thing I always look at, if you're going to be my colleague and the person I'm going to be handing over to soon and that's how we look at our trainees. And then obviously the well-being and health of our trainees. So we can't have a healthy population if we're not taking care of the people who take care of others. So kind of like putting your own oxygen mask on first. And so I know there's a lot of emphasis in the programs in the region to really help trainees understand how they can find some of that work-life integration and some balance to that. And these are the participating programs for small programs. So we've got Full Circle Health, and Dr. Brown will talk about more of that later. There's a TMC Health Medical Education Program. There's Pediatric Care, Kaiser Permanente, the Elson Floyd College of Medicine Pediatric Residency Program from Washington State University. So, and then obviously these are associated with the APPD, Future Peds Residents, COMCEP. And so, again, thinking about maybe more smaller programs, how are those different than medium-sized or larger programs? Well, not just the number, but I think when you are at a smaller program, you're going to get a lot more individualized attention. You cannot hide in a crowd. People will know your name, which I think if you went to a large medical school, that might be scary or it might be refreshing thinking about that. But I think small programs have very unique and specific missions and niches of what they're trying to achieve. And when you're part of that program, you tend to be a part of that mission and be aligned with that. And you get to know not only your fellow co-residents, but also your faculty, your subspecialists in very different ways. And I think thinking about that can be appealing to many people. It is to me. I like to know the people I work with, not just kind of on a professional level, but also personal level. And I think when you're in a smaller program, it really opens up a lot of opportunities to know people on a really personal level. So I joke that I know all my residents' moms and dogs and partners' names, which is true. So, and I think, is there another slide here? That's it. Okay. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's us for so and the Western region APPD board, we offer grants to residents who are interested in pursuing research. We want to be a support to any resident in the region, and like we said, collaboration is what we hope to do. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much. I would like to invite our program representatives to give a short presentation of the programs for 5 minutes for the first part of the evening, and then we will take questions after all of the presentations. Attendees, you can, however, leave your questions in the chat as we go. We also encourage programs to make use of the chat to answer any questions they can in case we run out of time. To ensure that all programs are adequately represented, each presentation is limited to 5 minutes. When you hear my timer go off, please begin to wrap up your thoughts, as that will signify that you have 30 seconds remaining. I know that it's a little bit of a smaller group this afternoon, so if you're 30 seconds, a minute over, it's all right. Just go ahead and finish your thought. It's all good. All right, so our first program of the evening is Full Circle Health Pediatrics Residency of Idaho. I would like to invite your representative to unmute and tell us about your program.
Thank you, Ria. My name is Perry Brown. I serve as the program director for the Pediatrics Residency of Idaho, Full Circle Health Pediatrics Residency of Idaho. We are a new program. We are a small program, but we're really, really excited about what we're building. We are going to be recruiting for our third class of residents, so to essentially fill our residency. Our first two classes are outstanding. We're very excited to have them with us, and really things have been going pretty amazingly well. We are unique in that we are based out of a federally qualified health center rather than a medical school, a university hospital, a university, et cetera. And that gives us a lot of freedom and flexibility and allows us to really focus on primary care. When we're not doing primary care, our residents are working out of the most geographically isolated children's hospital in the lower 48 states. Savara a little bit ago was talking about the the catchment areas in the West, and she was absolutely correct. Our catchment area, even though Boise isn't a gigantic city, we have a catchment area of a population of over 2 million. We have every pediatric subspecialty present for training, a total of 26 pediatric subspecialties, and very advanced services that are available at St. Luke's Children's Hospital, including a level 2 pediatric trauma center, level 4 NICU that's very busy with 68 beds, a very high functioning level 1 PICU, and numerous multidisciplinary clinics that are shared by the many different pediatric subspecialties, including cystic fibrosis, bowel and bladder clinic, cleft lip and palate clinic, trach and vent clinic, and residents work in these and are welcome to all of these. The services are very busy. As I mentioned, we're a pretty small program. We're the smallest accreditable size by the ACGME of 4 residents per class. So as Dr. Mansour mentioned before, we really do get to know each other. We really are a family, and we actually have a lot of fun together. And our new clinic site that we're operating out of is outstanding. I got to design it. It's the 5th clinic that I've built over the years. It's definitely the highest functioning one that we have. It really, just by its structure, encourages a lot of collaboration. And then finally, the last highlight that I'll point out is being the only pediatrics residency within a huge geographic swath. There's tons of leadership opportunities for our residents. We have a resident who is on the executive board of our Idaho chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, involved in committees in Full Circle Health, opportunities within St. Luke's Health System, et cetera. Curricularly, we have a modified X plus Y schedule. It's not a traditional X plus Y schedule, but it does assure that the days that you're in clinic for the entire day. You're never racing over from a morning in the hospital to get to clinic. Wherever you are, you're dedicated in that location for the day. We also, the unique aspects of our curriculum include 2 dedicated blocks to advocacy and community pediatrics, 4 weeks in the first year, 4 weeks in the second year. And what's unique about it is we actually pull all the residents off service, and you're doing that together as a class. It's the 4 of you doing it together. It's awesome bonding time, and there's some amazing experiences we're able to plan in that. There's also 10 weeks of rural pediatrics experience, 2 weeks in the first year, 4 weeks in the second year, 4 weeks in the third year. And that really is to introduce residents not only to what practicing pediatrics is like in rural communities, but when you send patients back from the big city, or if you happen to be a subspecialist after doing fellowship, what the resources are back in those communities so that you can better plan for care for your patients. And then we have an outstanding simulation curriculum that actually Dr. Mansour designed in this amazing Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine state-of-the-art simulation lab. We have a number of diversity initiatives. One of the things I'll say about Idaho as a state is not terrifically diverse. Boise as a city is. It was one of the original refugee gateway resettlement communities, and by being a participant in that program for the last 40 some odd years, we really have developed a nice amount of diversity within our community, and we're very proud of that. Full Circle Health has been running the longest operating refugee resettlement clinic, basically, in the area. We do focus, thank you for that. We do have a big focus on resident wellness, as you can see from our list there. And given the short time, I have to talk about location. Boise is an awesome place to live. The outdoors access is unbelievable. The mountain biking, it's been considered the #1 mountain biking city in the US. Skiing 15 miles from downtown, white water everywhere, and then all the amenities of the big city too. So please check us out on our website that you see listed on the slide. Follow us on Instagram. And we would love to teach you more about our program at some point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, for that awesome description of your program. And I'm sure everybody's interested in learning more, which can be found on the website, as he said. Now we're going to introduce our next program, Kaiser Permanente, Southern California. And I believe we have Dr. May here for his program.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for organizing this to the group and for the invitation. And I always like to start these sorts of conversations with just a thank you to all the students interested in the field of pediatrics. It's a noble, great profession. It's given me tremendous professional joy and fulfillment, and I certainly wish you all similar joy as you find your path along the way in terms of your career. And so I'll share a little bit about our program. So perhaps the first thing to say is that we're affiliated with a very large healthcare organizations, Kaiser Permanente. We are the only pediatric training program in Southern California affiliated with Kaiser Permanente, and all of our training is our main tertiary center in Los Angeles. I think I would sort of classify our program as sort of a small to moderate size program. We have typically 8 residents a year. Occasionally, based on funding, we go up to 9, and we actually, our complement with ACGME is up to 10. We certainly have ample clinical volume and variation of pathology to have our residents have a really wide breadth of clinical exposure and experiences. And we do it almost exclusively within the walls of our organization, which is an integrated healthcare organization, as I mentioned, really highlighting preventative care, unified electronic medical records, big databases to ask clinical questions and do research, and really amazing faculty and clinical colleagues to work with and learn from. I think of our program as an apprenticeship model, so we really don't have any fellows, despite the fact that obviously we're in Los Angeles with lots of other opportunities to train in large academic centers in our near vicinity. But it really does allow our residents to have autonomy with their patients, and certainly have our faculty vested in their training. We offer all the subspecialties. We do a few rotations, notably pediatric emergency room outside of Kaiser to enhance the experience, but most everything else is within our organization. Our primary care experience is in our continuity clinic, and you work alongside experienced, outstanding general pediatricians here at the Los Angeles Medical Center. And our hospital across the street really does serve as that tertiary center for our whole system. So you get the benefits and breadth of pathology of over 1 million kids that we take care of in Southern California. And so I do think it really provides a well-rounded opportunity for residents to discover their passions, to take their training and go in different directions. We have very successful residents who end up staying in our system in Kaiser and being colleagues. I love that comment about the way we train folks with the idea of thinking about them as our future colleagues. That certainly resonated with me in our program as well in terms of a mission and thought. But we also have folks who go off to fellowship, and sometimes we welcome them back. We just actually had one of our recent grads who finished her NICU fellowship at Washington National Children's in DC come back and join us in neonatology down south of here. So we have lots of opportunities in our organization, really do look to have a group of residents that like to work together in a team setting, help each other, pull each other along, and build each other up in a very positive learning environment. The details I've purposely I haven't gone through every one of these bullet points, but you certainly can read more about them. Be more than happy to answer any questions along the way. And we have videos and more details on the bottom as well in terms of our website. So I encourage you all to learn more, and certainly look forward to talking more about our program as the application season goes along. The curriculum has lots of ability to be individualized. We are, as I imagine many programs are, still working through the details of what it's going to look like with our new ACGME guidelines. Certainly can talk more about that in the Q&A if folks have questions about it. I think, again, one of the strengths of a smaller program is we really are able to get a lot of resident feedback to craft our journey and see where folks want to go. And so we have a good idea of where we're headed, although the actual specifics we're going to nail down in the next couple of months, but likely moving to an X+Y curriculum-based a block and building a few new blocks that we're excited about to lean into some of our strengths in mental health and collaborative work and multidisciplinary clinics as well. We benefit from a large GME robust service at our hospital. So we have most other residency program training as well. And we use the simulation center along with many others in our group in GME to take advantage of that. We have a professionalism symposium that we run that is in our second year. We get our whole second year class together. We talk about big picture items that hopefully is helpful for their career development and has been a big favorable thing for our residents as well. And obviously Los Angeles has a lot of benefits as well in terms of the diversity of the community with which we live and which we serve. And so certainly thank you all for taking the time this evening to learn about these various programs. I think there's a lot of advantages personally having trained in a smaller program, to have that engagement and investment from your faculty, to have that autonomy, to be able to run and learn and stretch your wings and learn as a resident. And again, happy to answer any questions along the way. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. May. Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. All right. So next up, we have Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine, Washington State University Pediatric Residency. I would like to invite your representative to unmute and tell us about your program.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Rochelle. I'm the program director. I think we might have the longest name that's in ACGME, but basically we are a program that is at Washington State University is the sponsor, but we're located at Sacred Heart Children's Hospital in Spokane. One thing it's just really interesting in pediatrics is how much collaboration there is. So through the APPD, we collaborate with the other programs that are on here, but programs across the country. And we are a brand new program. So my presentation today is different than it was last year when I attended this event. And my presentation next year will be different again, because we have our first 6 residents rotating through. They're in their second week. Last year, we didn't have any residents, and next year we'll be recruiting for a 3rd class. So we're just a little bit behind Dr. Perry Brown, who's been super helpful, and it's been rewarding for both of us to be able to communicate. And we are part of an affiliation within Washington and Idaho to try and help each other's residency programs to flourish and succeed. We are geography is everything in the West, as has been stated. I think one thing that's different than the East is not only the area or the space, but it's actually like what limits that. So here in Eastern Washington, I would argue that most stuff east of the Cascades and other mountainous borders actually determine where patients want to go. And we find that patients come to Spokane because it's really more of a feeling of a big town, even though it is a small city, and it's easy to navigate. So it's easy to navigate for patients and it's easy to navigate for families. So people come here and flourish here and really enjoy the area, the weather, and what Spokane has to provide. We started this residency program because we saw a need for medical homes and primary care in our community. So I'm a pediatric ER physician, and I sort of I have my finger on the pulse of not only what's going on in the community as I communicate with primary care physicians, but also with the subspecialists in the hospital. And so that was the need for this. The thing that separates us apart is we have a very highly functioning, successful children's hospital. It's not like we're bringing residents in because we need residents to work. So we stress that our program is very more focused on education as opposed to service. So you're not coming to the hospital because there's a service need that you need to fill. We're bringing you here to educate you with the hopes that, not only will you go on to be successful pediatricians in general, but, all of us are hopeful that some of you will stay or be recruited to stay in our local communities after residency, as well as teaching a good foundation. So if you decide to go on and do a subspecialty that you'll be well prepared for that. So yes, we have a very highly functioning children's hospital with all the subspecialties. The nice thing about creating a program is that we kind of saw what the needs were nationally. And so as we created the program and created a modified X+Y program, for those of you that don't know, ACGME came out with new curriculum requirements that will start in 2025. The nice thing is all we needed to do is rename things, but we didn't have to do any changes because we already were implementing a fair amount of psychiatry and implementing community pediatrics. And we use a federally qualified health center in the community to do our community pediatric rotation. One thing that's a little different than about us is that all of our residents right now are going out into the community, into established pediatric offices, and they'll work one-on-one with a community pediatrician. And that's where they'll establish their pediatric patients. So we don't have a centralized clinic for the residents to go to. When I trained many years ago now, half the residents went in the community and half went to a centralized clinic. Almost all the people went into the community, went into general pediatrics. I don't know if they had a better experience but that's the model we're using now. That might not always be the model, but we have a lot of general pediatricians who are really excited about bringing the residents in and working with them. So since we have that availability, that's the way we set things up. Our modified X+Y schedule, what that means is that we alternate 4-week blocks and 2-week blocks throughout your schedule. The 4-week blocks are all either hospital-based subspecialty rotations or inpatient rotations. And when you're on a hospital-based subspecialty rotation, you go to clinic once, but when you're on an inpatient rotation, you don't go to your primary care clinic. During the 2-week blocks, we have this longitudinal sort of model where like behavior development is over the course of a year, where you go to a behavior development clinic, and it's part of those 2 weeks where you go to continuity clinic, you'd go to behavior development, you have time for scholarly activity, you're going to your community pediatrics. So those 2-week blocks are a little bit of dancing around, but we feel that it's, as opposed to just getting one opportunity to get exposed to something, it allows you to kind of know what you don't, to learn what you don't know, and then have more time to address that in the future. So Spokane's a great place to live. We just completed a $100,000 upgrade within the hospital for the residents, for their space, computers, tables, desks, all the things that residents will need for learning. So I invite you to come check out our program. Again, there's a lot of unknowns because we're a new program, and it'll be very interesting to see during the interview season when our residents have more time under their belt, so that they can give you a better update from their perspective.
Thank you, Dr. Rochelle. Now we have our next program, TMC for Children Pediatric Residency Program. We would like to invite your representative to unmute, please.
Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Ashani Joshi. I'm here along with our program coordinator, Maria, to present our program, TMC for Children, the Pediatric Residency Program. We are a 607-bed community hospital and a leading provider, as well as one of the oldest hospitals in Tucson, for emergency care and pediatric care. We are a wonderful program for anyone that's looking to pursue a small, very, very supportive, close-knit program. I would say probably our biggest supporter of the program is our program director, Dr. Eck, along with our program coordinator, Maria. We've all always formed very, very tight bonds, and I would say that's probably one of the biggest strengths of our program. As everyone has mentioned, you know, being in a small program, you tend to know your peers as well as your attendings, and they tend to know you really well, which creates an amazing environment for residents to grow and learn and support each other. We get a lot of individualized attention on every rotation because there are no fellows. Most of the rotations are one-on-one with specialty attendings, and therefore you get to participate in every procedure along with other learning opportunities. This year, we've kind of changed up our curriculum a little bit to compose of 13 blocks per year, along with continuing on our continuity clinic at El Rio once a week. El Rio Health is our partner for continuity clinics for all of the residents. It is an FQHC, which is a federally qualified healthcare center. Each year, we also have 6 blocks of independent curriculum, along with the ability to pursue subspecialty rotations, whether that's at our hospital and through TMC or away rotations at several hospitals, which many of our residents have definitely done. And then along with that, we have didactics every week, which is about 3 hours, and then morning reports. Tucson itself is a very vibrant city with a very, very diverse population and very stunning desert landscapes. Like just right now, it is monsoon season. So we're enjoying a lot of rain amongst all of the mountains that surround us. It is the second largest city in Arizona. So there's plenty for us to do here, but I would say probably the highlight is the food that we get to enjoy. There's a lot of refugees that live in Tucson. So along with that being a big part of our patient population that we serve, we also get to enjoy a lot of their culture that they bring with them to the city itself. I would say probably the other strength of our program is the resident wellness that again, all of us who are within the program and support it like to emphasize for all of our residents. So outside of just the quarterly wellness activities, we have built into our curriculum and our didactic schedule the wellness nights that we have, along with a monthly gym membership that's included. That's $12 a month, which tends to be cheaper than most other places, 4 free therapy sessions, and then a lot of resident bonding activities that we tend to do. We look forward to hearing a lot of your questions, and if there's anything else that I can provide as far as information, me and Maria are definitely happy to help.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. That concludes the program overview portion of the evening. Now we will open up the floor to a live Q&A. If anyone prefers to remain anonymous, please feel free to send me a personal message and I will address your question to the program representatives.
I have a question that came through on the chat. With no professional or personal ties out west, but a strong interest in moving there, what advice do you have to signal this other than an away rotation?
So I can jump in on that real quickly. So pediatrics is a specialty in which via ERIS you can signal programs and you can also state your geographic preference. I think that if this was something that you were really interested in, and you were pretty dedicated to moving to the Western region, just by noting that in the geographic preference, I think that programs would take note of that and recognize that you are serious about coming to this region, no matter where you're coming from. And for individual programs, there's a lot of chatter around should you signal, should you not signal programs that you're interested in. I cannot figure out what the downside is of signaling. At the APPD meeting in April, it was very clear that there's upside in terms of signaling with a higher likelihood of being interviewed, being offered an interview if you signal. Maybe one of the other program directors has a different feeling of that maybe there is some downside that I haven't considered on signaling, but those are just my thoughts.
I can just chime in and again say I agree. I think if you have a specific interest in the West, going ahead and putting that as your geographic preference is certainly helpful. I know we are looking for good fits as we review applications, and so we always are looking for people who have an interest in living in our part of the country, because there's lots of good places to train, and certainly you want to be in a place where you're comfortable and surrounded by an environment and family and friends or whatever you feel is going to be important for your wellness and productivity during your training. You could sometimes even maybe put that into the personal statement if it's maybe not obvious in your resume in other ways to really highlight that if it's an important part for you and you think that as we review applications, we may not understand the obvious rationale or so forth. To the point of signaling, I agree. I don't personally see much of a downside. And so I think if you were certainly interested in a program, again, this is all about a match. And so we certainly are looking for folks who are interested in our program, as I imagine all of the other PDs on the call would say the same. And so from my perspective, as I review applications, if we have someone who is specifically shown interest in our program, I'm much more likely to look upon that person with more favor, because we want to find folks that are happy and want to be in our program. So that would be my thought.
I think the whole idea, even though we're a new program, I think the idea of signaling and geographical preference is relatively new. So we're not really behind in that. And I think in transparency for us, we kind of looked at, we get a lot of applications, right? And we all have a small number of spots, and we all have a number of interview spots that kind of correlate with that. And I think for me, if you didn't want to be in the West and say you wanted to be in the Southeast, if you geographically said you wanted to be in the Southeast, then that kind of tells me that you're not really interested in coming to the West. I kind of see it and say that if you are open to going anywhere, I'm a prime example. I grew up in New York City. I did my training in Salt Lake. I went back to Rhode Island for a fellowship, and now I'm here in Spokane, Washington. So I think our world is so open in terms of where you settle that to me, it's just more eliminating. If you have family reasons or reasons that you want to be on the East and you say that, then that would be someone that I would not look at or my initial scrolls in terms of, but if you leave things open and you don't necessarily, prefer a specific region, then I'm open to looking at you, understanding that people move around quite a bit. That's the way I look. That's the way our program looks at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that another question in the chat came through that might be good to touch on and to hear from each of the programs. Can you please speak to fellowship preparedness and how your program supports students interested in fellowship after residency?
I can lead us off with this one. So I would say, in our program, there's a strong support for whatever goals people have after residency. And our program director, as well as the rest of our program leadership, is very interested in supporting those goals. We offer residents to do away rotations in any specialty that we cannot do specifically through our program. In addition to that, we've had a lot of our residents match into first time around match into the fellowship choices that they've had. We have a pediatric cardiology fellow right now at UCSF. We've also had in our past, in our most recent graduating class, somebody matched to Dartmouth for NICU, and then UCLA for endocrine. So we definitely go out of our way to support whatever goals specifically related to fellowship that any of our residents have. And we try to find out those goals early on in their residency so we can be supporting them all 3 years.
I can jump in next. We obviously have less experience with this than the Tucson program because we haven't had any graduates yet, but we have such dedicated pediatric subspecialists in our hospital system that are working with residents. And I absolutely believe that our program and other small programs in our region can beautifully prepare residents to go into fellowship. It sounds like all of our programs have very strong clinic experiences. I think that if you talk to pediatric subspecialists, a lot of them will say, at least the outpatient-based ones will tell you that the hardest part it was getting settled into the outpatient clinical setting as a subspecialist when they were done, and that good clinic preparation is really, really important. And, I think that the important things to think about in terms of fellowship are, do you have the mentorship of pediatric subspecialists in the program? You will in these programs. Do you have the opportunity to perhaps go and do a block at another place where you might be interested in doing your fellowship in a larger center, you can in Boise. I'm guessing you can in some of these other, in all of these other programs. But I think small programs can beautifully prepare residents for almost any kind of fellowship.
Yeah, I certainly agree with those sentiments. And I didn't mention it, but I'm clinically a pediatric endocrinologist. I started in a small program and in fact, discovered endocrinology as my field with an away rotation, actually. And so I really take the perspective that the goal of residency, regardless of where you ultimately land, is to be really solidly well prepared clinically in general peds in the various places, then what that means. And hopefully then that ignites a passion, and it might be a fellowship for some of you, and that's fantastic. But I really think for most folks, in at least that's how I counsel my residents, is wherever your career is going to take you, a good specialist starts as an excellent general pediatrician and then builds from there. And so that's really our focus. But in terms of opportunities to cultivate that passion and to link up with mentors, we certainly have all the specialists in our program and local connections to the training facilities that do have fellows. We have largely clinical based research, but certainly if there is a specific area that one of our residents is interested in, I certainly routinely will help mentor them to find a faculty member to do something that might be of clinical interest, might solidify their interest in a fellowship position, and sometimes might be relevant and important for the whole application process for fellowship. But we've had very good success in folks finding good spots in matching and fellowships as well.
I couldn't agree more. We, even though we're a new pediatric residency program, we've been dealing, we've had graduate medical education in Spokane since before I came here. I'm in my 20th year, and I'm a PDR physician. And I've always said, regardless of what you want to do after pediatrics, your whole goal in your residency program is to become a pediatrician. Worry about your fellowship afterwards. And I feel that's what sort of made me successful, is I felt like very, very good, very grounded. And that's, I think, what differentiates us as a subspecialty in pediatrics is having that knowledge base. If you're going to be a pediatric cardiologist or a NICU doctor, but you don't know how the general pediatrician looks at things and what they can do, then that's a big disadvantage to your patients. And so I think all of you should focus on a program where you feel like you're going to get a very good basis in pediatrics. And then, for the residency requirements in pediatrics, there's an ILP, an individualized learning plan. And even though that's like punitive in other residency programs, in pediatrics, that's sort of your learning plan over the 3 years to make you successful. And so we start right away with a coach and start discussing what your plans are and making sure that you meet that. But I think, all of us have all the subspecialists available at all of our programs. And so those are the people who have the contacts and are going to be able to help you, succeed and know, how to get into fellowships and those contacts. But become a general pediatrician first, and then worry about the rest of it as time goes by. That should be your goal.
Great, thank you. And then a couple questions in the chat. The first one, let's see. What is an important quality in an applicant you look for to be a good fit for your program?
If you could, Ria, just repeat that one more time.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so the question is, what is an important quality in an applicant you look for to be a good fit for your program?
You can start out with this one. For us, it's sort of a little bit of an oxymoron, because we want people who are going to be independent, but yet we want them to be team players. So, as a new program, and where the residents are going out in the community and they're going to lots of different places with our longitudinal model, they need to be comfortable with going in and somewhat functioning independent. Because like I said, when you go to continuity clinic, there's just you and a pediatrician. You're not in clinic with 6 other residents. But at the same time, we're looking for what other people have said. I mean, we're a small program. We're looking for a family approach where people can lean on each other, depend on each other. And when I'm coming off a NICU rotation, I can call the person on, who's come and follow me on Monday morning and help them out on how to succeed and not be nervous about going to a first day. So it's sort of a little bit of both for us. We're looking for where people can fill both those roles.
I was going to say the exact same thing, was teamwork ability. But Chris did an awesome job of grabbing that one. So I'll add growth mindset. So really not being stuck in a fixed mindset and being interested and open-minded and collaborative and interested in receiving feedback for growth, and working to become the best pediatrician, human being that each of us can be. I think that that would be my another favorite quality.
You both don't leave me much to say. They're very similar, you know, and I think you really hit on some of the main ones. So I don't know. I maybe just to add to it, I would say, you know, it's so much fun to teach someone and work with someone who has passion for the work they're doing and is really interested in learning. And so working well in groups, inspiring others, you know, pushing the bar to make our program better, you know, bringing their unique experience to enrich all of us. Those are the kinds of characteristics. And I've been doing this long enough where I've long ago realized that a USMLE score or what have you doesn't really have a correlation in my mind to the type of pediatrician you end up becoming. So I think these other characteristics of being compassionate and warm and dedicated and a good team player end up being at the end of the day what makes the pediatricians that we're proud to see leave our program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria from THMEP. I'm the program coordinator. Just to add on to all of those fantastic characteristics, we are also looking for adult style learners, which I think kind of encompasses all of those characteristics. But specifically at THMEP, we have a very, very flexible curriculum. And so we're really looking for residents who are going to kind of harness that and kind of create their own adventure. We always say that we are so excited to help you follow your passions, but you have to tell us what that is so that we can kind of make your dreams come true. So that is something that's really important to us, is just we're here. We will give you every single opportunity that you can imagine, but we need you to tell us what that is and kind of go for it from there. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
All right, so let's see. Probably last question of the night. So, how have your programs started to transition to the new ACGME requirements and provide support to the residents for the transition?
I can jump in first. So we are kind of slowly transitioning to the new requirements. One of the biggest changes that we've made this past year is going to a 13 block curriculum. The other thing that we have done is implement this coming year a mental health month. So our PGY2s are going to be participating in that mental health month. So we're kind of in the process of building what that will look like. We've also started a work group for EPAs. So that's another thing that's coming out, just kind of a new way of evaluating you. So those are kind of the changes that we've made thus far.
Yeah, for our program, the significant change for us is we've gotten a lot of value in our inpatient setting, and so looking at the new regulations, it's going to hard to replicate what we do on the inpatient side with a number of blocks, and so we're in the process of reimagining a few service lines and making new agreements, and perhaps getting a little help with some call coverage that our residents are currently doing. And as I said, we have the framework of what that's going to look like starting in July of 2025, and we're in the process of finalizing it all. And though ACGME does give programs a little latitude in terms of how those changes are rolled out over the next couple of years, we anticipate rolling out a modified curriculum for our 3 years all at once come July. And most notably for that will likely be an iteration of an X plus Y curriculum, which as of now we have not done. So that's going to be the biggest adjustment for us from a scheduling perspective. And I think based on the resident feedback we've had so far, I think our residents are excited to see how that works. But we have to build a mental health block, which we haven't had. We've previously had an advocacy block that we may sort of incorporate into a longitudinal experience. So there's some nuts and bolts of this. The details I'll pass over for the moment, but we're making some modest changes to a few things while hopefully capturing and continuing with the general spirit and function and role our residency program has as it supports our hospital and our patients.
I can jump in. Or do you want to go first, Chris?
No, I was just saying, go ahead, Perry. I'll go after you.
All right. So Chris and I imagine are in similar circumstances as newer programs. We have less that less that was really built and had been the same way for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So it was pretty easy to kind of move things around and adjust. It turns out that we got kind of lucky. We had set up our curriculum, our 3-year curriculum, and then about a year and a half later, the 2025 guidelines came out, and I started reading through them, and I was like, oh my gosh, we already are doing all of this stuff. The only thing we weren't doing was we had not designed our psychiatry mental health experience yet. So in collaboration with our residents, we came up with and our psychiatrists, we came up with a plan that what we're going to do and have already started doing for our current residents who have elected to do this, 3 now have, is a 2-week elective in pediatric psychiatry. And then a longitudinal experience for the equivalent of the second 2 weeks, where they will go back for a full day every 2 to 3 blocks and spend a day with pediatric psychiatry again, be able by doing that to have the core experience and know how the clinic works, and then be even able to schedule some of their own patients to be seen with the psychiatrist on those future longitudinal dates, or bring in interesting cases for discussion, etc. So that so far has been working very nicely. It's still, kind of in its infancy, but that was one of our adjustments. A lot of the other stuff we had kind of, luckily anticipated or guessed.
Yeah, I think for those of you who may have not read or become as knowledgeable about the ECGME residency requirements, I think it's like a 70-page document that I've read more times than I would want to say, but it really is like a recipe. And so I might have, fresh tomatoes and, not want to use canned tomatoes, but it allows the residency programs to play on their positives and try and minimize their weaknesses. So if I have a place where, that particular field isn't as welcoming for residents, then I don't want anybody to go there. I don't want anybody interacting with the residents, for teaching wise. So with these new curriculum, as I said, we kind of built this looking at what we want for pediatricians in our community, what we would expect for pediatricians. And when I was a fellow, I remember somebody saying that pediatrics, when, many years ago, was infectious diseases. You need to know your immunizations, you need to know fever and rashes, and that it's all becoming there's a lot more mental health and behavior development, adolescent medicine. And so we see that as sort of the most challenging points where pediatricians who graduated 15 years ago were not feeling as prepared. And so we really built that. And I think that's a lot of the changes that have come in with these new requirements. There's less inpatient stuff, but I mean, I still think that all that inpatient stuff is super important to know what your patients are going through if they're in the pediatric intensive care unit and what to expect afterwards. So we're the most fortunate. I was actually hoping they were supposed to go into effect in 24, that our first class would have been there. But the way we've played it is that it actually is sort of, we just put those things that are going into curriculum starting in the second year. So it was easier for us than everybody else, I think, being a new program.
Yeah.
All right, so we have reached top of the hour. So hopefully everyone got the chance to learn a little bit about what our Western Small Programs have to offer. We want to repeat how grateful we are to all the program directors, coordinators, and other representatives who took the time to join us tonight. Let us know what you thought about tonight's event by completing our survey. Feel free to scan the QR code on the screen, or we might also be able to drop in the chat the link for the survey. So just let us know how we did tonight. As a reminder, there is a one-time registration for all of our webinars on this slide. Feel free to scan the QR code on the screen or register by clicking the Zoom link in your chat. So let's see, this QR code is for the Zoom links for the next webinars, and then this slide is for our survey, just to clear it up. All right, so we hope everyone has a great rest of your night. Hope to see you all at our future events. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. I
Take
appreciate
care.
it.